Now, we got to talk about Joe Kent. Joe Kent has all the headlines lately, and I did an unbelievable deep dive on this guy. I've dug up so much shit, I should open up a shit store to sell it. And I'm sure I will find enough buyers for the amount of good quality shit I've shat to actually destroy this fucker. All right, so Joe Kent made this statement. All right. At first, he says, after much reflection, I decided to resign from my position as director of National Counterterrorism Center effective today. All right. So he was the director of counterterrorism. Realistically, not been doing a very good job. Not trying to be controversial or anything. I don't know if you've been aware, there's been a lot of terrorism in the United States. All right, there have been 5 Islamic terrorist attacks this month, literally. All right, bombs in New York, a bomb in Michigan, shooting in Austin, Texas, a shooting in Virginia. There have been 5 Islamic terrorist attacks, and that's aside from the Antifa riots, which are still not done. All right, so I hate to be that guy, but this motherfucker could have done a better job. Anyway, I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. It is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. It's been an honor serving under Trump and Gabbard, leading the professionals at NCTC. May God bless America. We're going to be looking at Gabbard in just a minute. She did an entire congressional testimony over this stuff. But let's look at his statement, because when I say this is what everyone's talking about, I mean this is what everyone's talking about. 100 million views, almost 1 million likes. All right, this is a massive story. President Trump, after much reflection, I've decided to resign from my position of director of National Counterterrorism Center effective today. I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it's clear that it was started due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. Now, to be clear, Donald Trump said the opposite. Trump said that we forced Israel's hand, not that Israel forced our hand. In fact, the opposite, we forced Israel's hand. That's a direct quote from Donald Trump. All right, but so anyway, he is obviously disagreeing with that statement. And he seems like he's a pretty professional guy, so we should hear what he has to say. I support the values and foreign policies you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, 2024, which you enacted in your first term until June of 2025. You understood that wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed America of its precious lives of our patriots and depleted the wealth and prosperity of our nation. In your first administration, you understood that better than any modern president, how to decisively apply military power without getting drawn into never-ending wars. Excuse me, is this a never-ending war? Excuse me, is this war with Iran never-ending? Wake me when it never ends, all right? I don't know. This doesn't look like it. We still don't have a single American soldier on the ground in Iran. How could you possibly call this a never-ending war at this point? We don't have a single man on the ground, all right? Now, just to be clear, all right? This smells like opportunism, trying to jump on a certain hype train of people upset at Trump for this stuff. Paid by foreign powers, perhaps? Well, we will see. We will see. Epic foreshadowing. You demonstrated this by killing Qasem Soleimani and defeating ISIS. Earlier in this administration, high-ranked Israeli officials, influential members of American media, deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform to sow pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. Just to be clear, Donald Trump has been pro-war with Iran for 40 years, all right? I have literally covered this war every single day, basically, since it started, all right? I've been doing deep dives daily. I have shown you literally 40 years of Trump saying we need to fucking bomb Iran. Literally, not even exaggerating. All right. And he is doing the thing that he literally promised from the very beginning right now. And he's doing it without putting American soldiers on the ground. All right. Praise God. I don't want that at all. So anyway, this echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States. This is diabolical. Because now, again, people know my stance on this at this point if you watch my videos. I actually don't give a shit if it's an imminent threat or not. My opinion is if it is an inevitable threat, it needs to be destroyed. I don't care how imminent the threat is. I believe that we should be destroying inevitable threats before they are actually a threat. That's right. The leftist policy is you have to wait until they literally fucking nuke California until you do something, right? Wait until an ICBM hits our shore, and then maybe we can fight back. And I think that's the gayest fucking mentality in the history of the world. All right, my opinion is we have an overwhelmingly overpowering military, and we should use it. We're giving it a lot of money as it is, all right, and we should use it. All right, if we have a literal terrorist entity that, let's remember for just a second, has killed thousands of Americans, has massacred tens of thousands of their own people, has started endless wars in the Middle East, all right? And also tried to assassinate President Trump multiple times. This is a fact that we know about. That is a threat. It is an inevitable threat that they are going to eventually get nukes if nothing's done about it. So, in my opinion, fucking destroy them. And that's also Trump's opinion. So anyway, and you should strike now. There was a clear path to a swift victory. This was a lie, and it is the same tactics the Israeli used to draw us into the disastrous Iraq war that caused our nation the lives of thousands of our best men and women. We cannot make this mistake again. Now, to be clear, I'm very against the Iraq war, obviously. In retrospect, I think the Iraq war was a terrible blunder. One thing that's important to note that for some reason people don't talk about, and this is a controversial opinion also for some reason, Israel literally lobbied against us going to the Iraq war. All right. Yes, Israel assisted us once we decided to go. All right. Yes, Israel gave us all their intelligence on Iraq after we decided to go. But the Iraq war started literally because of the CIA and the MI6. All right. This is literally the most obvious bullshit campaign ever. All right. Like, Israel directly stated they did not want us to get involved with the Iraq war because it would literally destabilize the region. This was Israel's words. I don't know how this became a talking point. This is from 2007. Chief of Staff of former Secretary of State reveals the large number of senior Israeli officials warned the Bush administration that the invasion of Iraq would be destabilizing into the region. The Israelis were telling us Iraq is not the enemy, Iran is the enemy. This is what Israel's been saying literally the entire time. All right, so like I am noticing something slightly diabolical here. All right, I'm not gonna lie. There's something a little bit fishy about this story. All right, just to be honest, just for a second. So anyway, so that's what this bro says. We can't make this mistake again. Okay, interesting. All right. As a veteran who deployed to combat 11 times as a Gold Star husband who lost my beloved wife Shannon in a war manufactured by Israel, once again, it's a tragedy that he lost his wife. It's a tragedy, and he's a hero for all the times that he's served our nation and our country, putting his life on the line. And I'm not trying to ruin any of that, God forbid, or underplay it. But it was not a war manufactured by Israel. I cannot support sending the next generation off to fight and die in a war that serves no benefit to the American people. It does. These people have not only killed thousands of Americans, but quite literally are trying to get a nuke to obliterate us. Have tried to assassinate Trump multiple times. Like, what are we talking about? Nor justifies the cost of American lives. I pray that you will reflect upon what you're doing in Iran and who we are doing it for. All right, you got to wonder, what happened to this guy? The time for bold action is now. We can reverse course, chart a new path for our nation. You can allow us to slip further in decline and chaos. You hold the cards. It was an honor to serve in your administration. Yeah, I'm sure it was. Anyway, so this post is very interesting. It feeds very, very much into the actual discourse that, Israel secretly controls America. America is controlled by Israel, right? And that's why we're literally fighting against terrorists that, according to Trump, we forced Israel's hand to get involved in right now to fight them because they have been trying to kill us for the last 47 years and are constantly trying to develop new ways to do that. In fact, let me remind you what the ambassador of Iran literally told our ambassador a week before the war. Quote, "We have enough uranium to build 11 nuclear bombs, and we are going to do it." All right? Like, I'm just being upfront here. That is a threat to us. If you think that Iran sleeper cells are a threat to us in our country now, why not give them all the time in the world to literally develop their weaponry, right? If you think that Iran threatening the Strait of Hormuz is bad for gas prices now, imagine what would happen if they literally had a nuke. So anyway, this tweet's very interesting for multiple reasons, and we will get into it. First, immediately after this post goes out, Joe Kent live at Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson swoops in. "I am here, Mr. Joe Kent. Please come on my podcast. We can talk about how Israel controls America together." Now, for those of you unfamiliar with Tucker Carlson's recent drama, you should watch my recent deep dive on him. He is currently being investigated by the CIA for allegedly leaking classified war plans to Iranian's government. That's right. He is literally, allegedly being investigated for treason as we speak. All right, and bro is more than happy to get Joe Kent on his show. There is a coup going on in the Republican Party. I hope that people are actually noticing, because this psyop is anything but organic. In my opinion, these people are going to be pushing to take over the Republican Party in 2028, right? The Joe Kents, the Tucker Carlsons, and I think J.D. Vance might be kind of working for them, because Tucker Carlson's, I think, nephew works for J.D. Vance. Also, Tucker Carlson and J.D. Vance both are really, really close to Peter Thiel, the Palantir guy. So, there's a lot of really interesting pieces moving, and I urge you to pay attention, because Joe Kent is also connected to Peter Thiel and Palantir. But anyway, anywho, that's conspiracy talk. Now, the White House told Tulsi Gabbard to fire Joe Kent, apparently, for suspected leaks, but she never did. This is information that came out right away. More information that came out right away. Trump official says head of counterterrorism who resigned was a known leaker and was cut out of intelligence briefings months ago. So, if, according to the administration, he was actually, removed from intelligence briefings months ago, and if that's true, then he didn't actually receive the intelligence to know if Iran was an imminent threat or not. Just to be clear, that pokes a pretty massive hole in this story. Again, we don't know exactly who's telling the truth. Only time will tell. I am more than happy to hear more sides to this, but I think that we need to listen to what, Joe Kent has to say. So, his wife was killed in an ISIS bombing in Syria, which is a nightmare. How is that manufactured by Israel? The guy running counterterrorism thought the real villains in the battle with ISIS were the Jews? Like, seriously, bro. Are we being serious for even like a half a second? This is insane. Now, Karoline Leavitt responds to this. There are many false claims in this letter, but let me address one specifically, that Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. This is the same false claim the Democrats and some liberal media have been repeating over and over. As President Trump has clearly and explicitly stated, he had strong and compelling evidence that Iran was going to attack the United States first. This evidence was compiled from many sources and factors. President Trump would never make a decision to deploy military assets against a foreign adversary on a vacuum. Iran is the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, and Iran's regime is evil. It proudly killed Americans, waged war against our country, and openly threatened us all the way up to the launch of Operation Epic Fury. Iran was aggressively expanding short-range ballistic missiles to combine with their naval assets to give themselves immunity, meaning they would have a degree of capabilities that would give them immunity to hold us and the rest of the world hostage. The regime aimed to use those ballistic missiles as a shield to continue achieving the ultimate goal, nuclear weapons. Right? This is very obvious to anyone that's been paying attention. A lot of retards don't get it, though, it seems. The president, through his top negotiators, gave the regime every single possible opportunity to abandon this unacceptable course of permanently giving up nuclear ambitions in exchange for sanctions relief, free nuclear fuel, and potential economic partnerships with our country. But they would not say yes to peace because obtaining nuclear weapons was their fundamental goal. Because they're literally a radical Islamist death cult. President Trump ultimately made the determination that a joint attack with Israel would greatly reduce the risk of American lives that would come from a first strike from the terrorist Iranian regime and address this imminent threat to America's national security interests. Also, let's not forget that Iran, the actual civilians in Iran were literally begging us to do this, being slaughtered in the streets. I feel like that's another pretty major point here. We are doing an objectively good thing, aside from it also being in our own interest. Anyway, all this led to President Trump arriving at the determination that this military operation was necessary for U.S. and national security, which is why he launched the massively successful Operation Epic Fury. Commander-in-Chief determines what does and does not constitute as a threat because he is the one constitutionally empowered to do so, and because the American people went to the ballot box and entrusted him and him alone to make such final judgments. True! This is actually the point of elections, believe it or not. And finally, the absurd allegation that President Trump made this decision based on the influence of others, even foreign countries, is both insulting and laughable. President Trump has been remarkably consistent and said for decades that Iran could never possess a nuclear weapon. As someone who has actually witnessed President Trump's decision-making process on a daily basis, I can attest to the fact that he is always looking to do what's best interest of the United States of America, period. America first. Immediate response to this is a whole lot of leftoids being like, but didn't you say that no such threat from Iran to our homeland exists and it never did? That's literally not a debunk. It didn't, and we're making sure that it never will. That is literally the point. But anyway, so Karoline Leavitt, she went on Fox News to destroy this guy a little bit more.
It's been a while. It's been a while since the president has seen him here at the White House. It's been a while since he's been involved in the process of the presidential daily briefs, and he's been actually present for the president's intelligence briefings. This was an individual who was not involved in any of the discussions pre-operation and throughout this operation.
But he said he saw all sorts of intelligence to say that Iran was no nuclear threat.
The president views it as deeply unfortunate that this individual, who the president gave the privilege of working for the administration, put out this resignation.
I don't know, man. I think that either A, he's being investigated for leaks and he's trying to get ahead of it by making himself look like some sort of martyr that's willing to sacrifice his career in order to fight for truth, which I think is the most likely. Second most likely, and also potential, I think he's trying to do a hostile takeover of the Republican Party. And I think he's working with people like Tucker Carlson and Peter Thiel, and maybe even J.D. Vance to do so.
on government letterhead with many falsehoods throughout, essentially accusing the president of being manipulated by foreign governments. That's laughable and it's insulting. President Trump has been remarkably consistent on this issue of Iran for many, many years. Long before he ever entered politics, he has always said Iran can never possess a nuclear weapon. So anyone who works here should be well aware of the president's intentions and his peace through strength agenda and his willingness to use the United States military to achieve peace if and when necessary, as we have seen throughout Operation Epic Fury.
True. Now, something important to be noted is that Donald Trump has been incredibly consistent regarding the entire Iran situation. But wouldn't it be funny if there was another player who was not very consistent regarding the Iran situation? Like perhaps maybe even Joe Kent himself? So Trump tweeted this in 2024. Big threats on my life by Iran. The entire U.S. military is watching and waiting. Moves were already made by Iran that didn't work out, but they will try again. Not a good situation for anyone. I'm surrounded by more men, guns, and weapons than I have ever seen before. Thank you. And Joe Kent reposted this, saying Iran has been after Trump since January of 2020 after he ordered the targeting and killing of terrorist Qasem Soleimani. This isn't a new threat. This isn't a new threat. This isn't a new threat. The Secret Service consistently failing to secure Trump is new. We need to figure out why these failures keep happening, implying that Iran intelligence literally has, or Iran influence literally has some sort of stranglehold on our CIA, or that our CIA is not actually operating in the best interest of the president of the United States. Right? That is what he's saying. And now here he is, part of the counterintelligence community, literally saying that Iran's not a threat. You made this tweet saying that Iran is literally potentially going to kill Donald Trump. What about this tweet from Joe Kent? At Real Donald Trump. This is from 2020. We should not sit down and wait for the next attack. Oh, we shouldn't wait. Wipe Iran's ballistic capability out and get our troops out of Iraq. These are the only targets now. Oh, wow. No US WIA KIA is a tribute to the professionalism of our military and intel professionals, not Iranian restraint. Oh, really? Not Iranian restraint? What changed? What happened, Mr. Joe Kent? You literally said they didn't pose an imminent threat to us in 2020, all right? If they didn't pose an imminent threat to us in 2026, then they definitely didn't pose an imminent threat to us in 2020, and you're telling us to wipe them out? That's interesting, Joe Kent. What about this tweet from Joe Kent? Important. Iran's goal in orchestrating October 7th was to that's the terrorist attack on Israel, was to break up the Abraham Accords because the historic alliance isolated Iran's terror regime. Trump used the balance of diplomacy, economic pressure, and targeted strikes to contain Iran, the embodiment of peace through strength. Israel's dismantling at Hezbollah could have been much more challenging, but if not impossible, if Trump has not taken out Iran's terror mastermind, Qasem Soleimani. Oh, so you're telling me actually that Trump is doing really well by stopping Iran because Iran is actually evil and shit? Wow. What about this one from Joe Kent? My opponents are spreading lies about me. This is in 2022. I strongly condemn Nick Fuentes' politics, especially in regards to our ally, Israel. Excuse me, you literally blamed Israel for killing your wife. Oh my God. This guy literally blamed Israel for killing his wife when she was killed by ISIS. Okay? Holy shit. I ignored his invitation to speak at the recent conference in Orlando, and I am not aware, do not accept any endorsement from him. All right, so that's what this guy had to say. All right? Excuse me, our ally Israel, right now you're saying that Israel masterminded all of our wars. All right? Well, what's going on there? Definitely, I personally think we should have crushed their ballistic and nuke capes. This is talking about Iran. But Trump has a plan. He definitely earned the confidence in any clear-eyed observer. So in 2020, he's urging Trump to bomb Iran. All right, interesting. What about this one from Joe Kent? I told you I did a lot of research. The war with Iran talk is very black and white in a gray world. Iran has been war with us since 79. Excuse me, you said we started a war for no reason, Mr. Joe Kent. Mr. Joe Kent. Mr. Joe Kent, you told me that you assured me with a very viral tweet that we started a war with Iran for no reason. They posed no imminent threat. You're telling me that we've been at war for the last 47 years. The killing of Qasem Soleimani is the first decisive act of taking Iran's terrorist regime since the 80s, implying that we should have done a lot more. The assumption that staying in Iraq, cut off Iran's funding by century Iraq, make Iraq pay, remove our troops, and then obliterate Iran. Interesting. Wow, interesting. Or what about this? Joe Kent blamed the October 7th attack on Biden's insufficiently hostile policy toward Iran. Wow, bro. He's blaming Hamas's terrorist attack on Israel on Biden because Biden didn't bomb Iran. Almost implying that he should have bombed Iran. Some would even say. Joe Kent condemns attack on Israel. Biden, Perez's weak leadership. I'm saddened it's all fucking Iran's fault and Biden for not crushing Iran. So it really seems to me Like, this guy has a very, very, very large, wide legacy of talking about how we need to fucking bomb Iran. What happened? What changed? What is going on? This is really suspicious. Gold Star wife here. When ISIS killed your wife, you supported going after the people responsible. You understood exactly why we were fighting, never called it Israel's war. My husband Alan was killed by Iranian proxies in Iraq. And now, after decades, the fight is finally leading back to the #1 state sponsor of terrorism in the world. You understood it when it was your loss. Now you're minimizing when it's mine. You don't get to redefine this war because it's not for your grief anymore. Tragic. In fact, this was Joe Kent in 2024. Interesting.
We left our troops in these vulnerable locations, like on the Jordanian, Syrian, and Iraqi border. Our troops have been attacked, we think, at least 150 times since the October 7th incident began. And so we've seen this coming. This was an inevitable conclusion.
This is him literally saying that we have been attacked by Iran 150 times since October 7th. Just to be clear, Mr. No Imminent Threat.
So by leaving our troops in these locations undefended, essentially, we left them there as bait because so many people in Washington, D.C. want to go to war with Iran. There's no other logical conclusion other than the fact that we have left them there as bait to be killed by Iranians at the time and place of their choosing so that we can continue to escalate towards a conflict with Iran and us.
Interesting how he's on with Tucker Carlson at this point. All right, so this is in 2024. This is a lot more recent. After an Iranian-backed militia killed 3 American soldiers at the coalition base in Jordan, Joe Kent blames U.S. government for baiting Iran. Kent claims that the U.S. government was leaving troops in areas across the Middle East hoping they would be killed to justify a war. What the actual fuck happened to this guy? Somewhere between 2022, where he was calling Israel our greatest ally, and 2024, where he's going on Tucker Carlson talking about how the United States is using our military officers as bait to justify a war with Iran. What happened? Donald Trump responded with this tweet. All right, he tweeted a screenshot of Joe Kent saying, "At real Donald Trump, you should not sit and wait for the next attack. Wipe Iran's ballistic capability out. Get your troops out of Iraq, etc., etc." What changed, sir? What changed, Joe Kent? What's going on? What happened? I think this guy was always in the current administration as a double agent. A double agent for what? I don't know, but that is my opinion. And this is what Trump had to say about Joe Kent.
Well, I read his statement. I always thought he was a nice guy, but I always thought he was weak on security, very weak on security. I didn't know him well, but I thought he seemed like a pretty nice guy. But when I read his statement, I realized that it's a good thing that he's out, because he said that Iran was not a threat. Iran was a threat. Every country realized what a threat Iran was. The question is whether or not they wanted to do something.
Even the guy in charge of NATO right now is begging the European allies to help us with Iran, by the way. All right, everyone knows Iran's a threat. All right, it is laughable. And especially coming from a guy with a whole history of telling Trump to attack them.
About it. And many people, many of the greatest military scholars are saying for years that president should have taken out Iran because they wanted a nuclear weapon. They were, if we didn't do the attack, or if, I'll go a step further, if I didn't terminate the Iran nuclear deal given to us, one of the worst deals ever made by Barack Hussein Obama. Remember when they sent Boeing 757s over there, loaded with cash, hundreds of millions of dollars? You would have been very happy. This was a wonderful, they said hundreds of millions. People forget that. Does anybody remember?
Yep.
Right? You remember.
I covered it. The fake news media didn't cover it, but this blue retard did. You should definitely subscribe if you want actual clarity. Or, you know, a little bit of retardation on your timeline. I don't actually care if you disagree with me. My opinions are my own. You have every right to be here or not. I just have a very, very rare opinion. We should not actually give hundreds of billions of dollars to terrorists that want to use them to build nukes to kill us. We should fucking kill them very efficiently and swiftly.
Hundreds of millions of dollars in a Boeing 757. I think they had 2 of them loaded. They took the seats out and they put cash. And it was so much that there wasn't a bank in Virginia, Maryland, or D.C. that had any money left. They stripped them of all their money, put it into place, sent it to Iran, almost as ransom. That's not going to happen with Trump.
In my opinion, it was ransom.
And nobody ever did anything about it. Nobody ever said anything about it. Can you imagine if I did that? So they've been a threat for a long time.
He's right, because I do believe that, you know, Trump said he drained the swamp. I don't think he drained the swamp. I think the swamp is still there. I really do believe that the actual CIA elite are doing whatever they fucking can to take the country back. You know, I think they're trying really hard, and I think they're starting to play both sides of the political sphere. Trump was a real wrench in their plans because this dude came from fucking nowhere and ended up here. And I think they are trying so hard to get a vice grip back on us. Notice Tucker Carlson, he's like a conservative guy. He keeps talking about how everyone should afford houses and stuff like that, and we don't need wars in the Middle East. And, you know, I agree with him on a lot of his takes. Notice he doesn't say anything about immigration, ever. Ever. He doesn't talk about deportations. He doesn't talk about immigration, ever. He never talks about denaturalization of infinite retards that we're bringing into our countries. In fact, he literally said that England doesn't actually have an Islam problem. Like, what is his actual goal?
A long time, but they've really been
Also, let's not forget that Tucker Carlson's dad was literally a CIA agent. Like, confirmed. We know that.
a threat. If I didn't terminate Obama's horrible deal that he made, the Iran nuclear deal, you would have had a nuclear war 4 years ago. You would have had nuclear holocaust, and you would have had it again if we didn't bomb the site. So when somebody is working with us that says they didn't think Iran was a threat, we don't want those people because, and there are some people, I guess I would say that, but they're not smart people or they're not savvy people. Iran
It's a completely valid stance, a valid opinion. You're just retarded.
was a tremendous threat. And virtually every NATO nation, and this is the thing, if they told me it wasn't a threat, and therefore they don't want to help.
Yeah, think about how insane it is, right? It wasn't a threat, but every single NATO nation said that it's good you're doing this, sort of. We just don't want to get involved. Even Canada and England were like, yeah, they're terrorists, but we don't want to get involved. France, Italy, Germany, they've all said this because it's known. It's a fact. Quite literally, it's a fact.
But when they say it was a threat, and it was a major threat, every one of them, I think every one of them, I don't know of one that said they're not a threat, but
Yeah, they're cowards and didn't want to get involved, and we'll cover that later, don't worry. But they were definitely a threat. In fact, Speaker Johnson also cooked Joe Kent a little bit.
Ran for Congress, resigned as the director of the Counterterrorism Center. He wrote that he cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. He writes, Iran posed no imminent threat to our nature. It's clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. How do you respond to that and to those other Republicans who say that this war is actually putting foreign interests above domestic interests?
Well, that proposition at the end is clearly wrong. I'm on the Gang of Eight. I got all the briefings. We all understood there was clearly an imminent threat, that Iran was very close to the enrichment of nuclear capability, and they were building missiles at a pace.
In fact, it wasn't just us, all right? The IAEA, all right, which is an international organization, stated that Iran had 60% enriched uranium, all right, which is, you know, weeks away from developing nukes. I know it sounds cringe because, you know, everyone's always weeks away from developing nukes, but literally the IAEA said that.
Pace that no one in the region could keep up with. They were far outpacing our allies and friends and us in our defense capability because we had personnel, installations, members of the armed services, and civilians in the region. Iran was building up ballistic missiles at such a rapid pace, and we knew that their plan was to fire them upon Americans. The commander-in-chief and his administration had a very difficult decision to make. I don't know where Joe Kent is getting his information, but he wasn't in those briefings clearly.
Oh, shit. We now have two people who are at these classified briefings that stated that Joe Kent was not there.
Because the Secretary of State, the Secretary of War, and everyone, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Kane, they had exquisite intelligence, and we understood that this was a serious moment for us. Had the president waited, I am personally convinced that we would have mass casualties of Americans, service members and others, and our installations would have been dramatically damaged. And so we had to, the president felt that he had to strike first to prevent those mass casualties.
And that's why we actually elected the guy. Again, I really feel like this is it's an entire op. There's a massive psyop going on, quite literally, to convince us that this war is actually not in our interest at all. Like, again, you could be for the war, you could be against the war, whatever your stance is. But to say that this is like some sort of cataclysmic decision that we didn't see coming, that Trump broke his promises, that this is a war purely done on behalf of foreign interests, it's literally not in our benefit, like that's just a lie. Like, that is a very obvious not truth. And I think that a lot of these people are smart enough to know it's a lie, and they'll push it anyway because they're just going to be part of this psyop. So Speaker Johnson went on Fox News, also destroyed this guy.
How is that not an imminent threat?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm not sure what Joe Kent is reading, but it's not the same intel that I've seen. Look.
What if he is part of a giant plot? All right, whatever. I told you my conspiracy already.
I'm on the Gang of
We'll
Eight.
see if
We
I'm
got
right.
all the briefings before.
All right, if I'm right, you got to put a shekel into the Nux is Always Right jar. All right, listen, you're going to have to. I'm telling you in advance.
Before this operation in Iran began, we got briefings during and then after it commenced, and the intelligence was exquisite. It was very clear this was an imminent threat to the United States and America's interest, and the commander-in-chief did exactly the right thing. He had to protect American lives. We knew that those ballistic missiles that they were stockpiling and preparing were going to be fired at our troops and our civilians and our installations in the region, and so the commander-in-chief did what he had to do. Joe Kent seemed to understand that until about 24 hours ago. I'm not sure what happened there. There's lots of discussion about it on Capitol Hill, as you can imagine. We're trying to get down to the bottom of it, but he is an outlier. I'm telling you, as we noted earlier, Bongino and others have said, everyone else in the administration and everyone who sees the actual intelligence understands clearly that the president did what he had to do.
All right, well, he's not the only one. Dan Bongino, former head of the FBI, said this too.
On a plaque in a facility I can't really talk about, and when you read the story there, it's a tough story to read. But, you know, again, as I've said with other, the sacrifice is beyond reproach. That doesn't mean that this current opinion is any more fact-based, because it's not.
I already know that I'm going to see people being like, Nux, are you attacking a veteran? Listen, man. I have nothing but respect for the service and that the sacrifice that these people make. That doesn't mean they can never, ever do a thing wrong ever again in their life. All right, if you have a veteran and he ends up raping someone, I'm still not going to like him, all right? Because I'm not a fan of rapists. I'm not a Democrat. Only Democrats like rapists. They try to bring them into our country. I'm not a Democrat, therefore I don't like rapists. So if you have a veteran that's a rapist, I'm not going to be a fan, as an example, right? So while I respect that this man was on duty, he lost so much, he sacrificed so much for our country, and I respect all of that, don't get me wrong. If he's committing treason now, he needs to go to jail or worse.
Sorry, Laura. I mean, I read probably a lot more intelligence than he did, because they don't have a law enforcement function, the National Counterterrorism Center. They're an analytical clearinghouse. They're valuable. However, I've had access to just about everything. And how you could come to the conclusion that the Israelis did it and there was no imminent threat here? Really? What about the anti-ship ballistic missiles, the drone program, 440 kilograms of 60% enriched nuclear material? Their constant death to America chance. I mean, you know, that's called evidence.
They also tried to assassinate Trump twice. Like, hello?
In some limited circles, we call that, you know, a clue. I mean, I don't know at what point you thought this wasn't an imminent threat after you've read.
I don't think he actually thinks this, though. All right, all these people are really treating him in good faith. But that's why you have me, a very, very skeptical, slightly sarcastic asshole, that I personally think that this guy is running an op on us. He is running as part of this counter-MAGA psyop. Him and Tucker Carlson, I think their allegiances are not with us.
A lot of the stuff I read. And by the way, that's just the open source stuff we can talk about on the air. I promise you, the president, I promise you, has a bevy of material that if he could do the Men in Black thing and erase your mind tomorrow, if he told you right now, you would come to the imminent threat conclusion in a snap.
Well, a senior U.S.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. It's pretty diabolical. Anyway, Asmongold even, and Asmongold's like no like big fan of Israel or anything. Asmongold's been saying this too.
I don't get it, man. It drives me crazy to see this. So anyway, I think obviously, I think he's totally wrong about this. I think that this goes against everything that he had said literally for years following this.
Yep.
And I think that it makes no sense that you want to get rid of you think Iran's trying to make a nuclear weapon. You think Hamas are terrorists. You think that they would commit a genocide if they could. You think that, you know, Islam.
I mean, to be fair, they literally stated their plan is to kill all the Jews and all the Christians and bring the entire world under Islam. And then they did October 7th, and now they're mostly dead.
Islamism is a threat to Western civilization. You think all this stuff, but
you know who else was saying that in 2021? Pay attention. All right, listen, man. I'm going to bring you into the Nuxanor conspiracy realm. Welcome to the Nuxanor tent, where dreams come true. Tucker Carlson in 2021 was also saying Islam was a threat, and now he's saying that Islam is actually really cool and awesome and based and stuff. He's saying he has more in common with Pakistani cab drivers in England than with your average American. That's a real quote from him. He's saying that it's a Jewish op to trick people into thinking that Muslims are dangerous. He's actually said that. Not even exaggerating. He said that with Piers Morgan. All right? Like, you have to understand, my guy.
You don't think that we should stop it at the source. That's really confusing to me.
Yeah, it just doesn't add up.
That's extremely fucking
It
confusing.
seems like there's some sort of operation going on, whether it's from a foreign power. I mean, we know that Tucker Carlson has connections with Russia and potentially Iran. I mean, he was literally texting with the Iranian regime right before the war started. He admitted it.
I don't get it.
I don't get it either, unless the conspiracies are true. But hey, I'm just blue cartoon retarded Alex Jones over here with my conspiracies. But you're going to see. I'll be proven right. All right, hopefully before it's too late.